Hey, Grow family. Hope you guys are all having an amazing day. I'm back with another video as promised. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tori and I garden in zone 6A. My portion of 6A is in central Illinois. However, this video today is actually not going to be zone specific. I do a lot of videos actually that are not zone specific, that are just teaching and information and tips and tricks, things that I've learned along the way. And so today's video is actually going to be talking about perlite and vermiculite. So I like to call perlite and vermiculite the roommates that are different. You've got your perlite, which is going to be that roommate that likes all the windows open and to be nice and airy and breezy. And your vermiculite is that roommate that is believing the apocalypse is coming and they're saving all the water bottles for the apocalypse. So no, but in all seriousness, perlite is perlite is actually derived from a volcanic glass rock. And what happens with that volcanic rock is it cools too quickly. It cools too quickly, and so instead of creating kind of a solid rock, it creates like a crystal, and it almost becomes glass-like instead of that solidness. And so what they do is they take that crystal and they heat that crystal up really, really hot, like 1600 degrees Fahrenheit. And what happens when it heats to that high of a temperature is it pops, it expands, it pops, and it becomes like this popcorn consistency. Looks like this, almost like, small chunks of popcorn. It is very dusty, by the way. So if you're using a lot of this and pouring it in an outdoor kind of setting, especially where there's wind or something, I suggest that you definitely, put some cover on, cover your mouth at a minimum. Some people also cover their eyes. But perlite is great for being light and airy. It creates air pockets that allow your roots to basically breathe. It allows them to breathe. It allows them to get the nutrients that they need because they have the space to be able to do so. It helps water move through. So when you're putting this in containers and you're pouring your water or however whether you're doing sprinkler systems or whatever, it's allowing that water to kind of go through. And it also helps to prevent compaction of your soil. Now, it won't be forever. This breaks down as well, but at least for a while, it's going to help you not have that compaction. Kind of reminds me of if you're on an old couch and that couch gets old and worn out and all of a sudden it's kind of sinking in. Something like perlite would be that, adding that fluff to it and kind of giving it that cushion. So light and airy, lets water pass through, lets your plant roots breathe. There is a downfall, though. If you do too much of this, you're going to end up with soil that dries out too quickly, which is going to mean you're going to be watering all the time. So you have to be careful. It also means that your nutrients are going through way too quickly. So your plants they might have that air to be able to get some nutrients. But if you have too much of this then that water is just going through too quickly. Your nutrients, especially if you're doing a liquid nutrient, it's going to move through too quickly, and your plant's just not going to be able to retain or to be able to hold on to some of that stuff that they need. So when you're doing mixes of this, a lot of times, especially for containers, that's going to be anywhere from about 10 to 30% of your actual mix. And again, it depends on what you're planting. There are a lot of variables. So those are just some things to kind of keep in mind. If you're not sure, you always can ask an experienced farmer or gardener. So that's perlite. Perlite, again, is your popcorn. It's airy, it's fluffy, it's going to help you with letting things pass through. Your vermiculite, on the other hand, is your sponge. So it is actually a heated mineral, so it's a little bit different from the volcanic glass rock. It's a mineral. I think it's called like mica, something like that, if I'm remembering correctly. That part doesn't really matter, but what you need to know is it's a mineral that when it was heated, or when it gets heated, it expands. It becomes like a soft layered fluffy flakes. So it's quite different from the perlite. uh, and you can even see just in the color and the consistency of it. You know, your perlite's nice popcorn, very airy, very crunchy. Your vermiculite is not crunchy. It's actually almost kind of a little moist, and it's going to hold water. And I'm kind of cracking up in my head right now because my dog is to the left of me. You may or may not be able to see him, but he swears these are treat bags. And he is patiently doing his good boy sit right now and really thinks that he's going to get a treat, but these are not for him to eat. So anyway, if you see him, that is what he is doing. His name is Kai. So back to the vermiculite. Vermiculite holds water. It holds your nutrients. It helps your soil stay moist longer. And usually that moisture that it provides is actually pretty even. You know, vermiculite is great. You know, moisture, hydration. It basically, you know, as you're in the heat, it saves you a cup of water for later. That's what it's doing for your plants. It's helping your plants drink. It's saving a little bit of water for them. But the cautions for this are bigger and more serious than the cautions for your perlite. Perlite, you might need to water a little bit more often. You know, you might need to do nutrients a little bit more often. With vermiculite, you can kill a plant, like really kill a plant. Too much of this, and you can end up with root rot, which is going to kill your plant. You can end up with dampening off, which is going to kill your plant. You can end up with fungus gnats, which are pests, especially if you're doing any of this indoors. The last thing you want is an infestation of gnats in your house. You don't really want them outside in your garden area either, but you know, definitely not in your house. It could cause poor oxygen to your roots. And so basically, in that case, your soil kind of becomes a swamp, which is exactly what you don't want. It's exactly why fungus gnats can thrive in that kind of area, because fungus gnats love wet, organic soil, especially organic soil. And what they do is in the top 1 to 2 inches of that soil, they lay their babies, and then their babies hatch and they feed off of the fungus and the various things in your soil, and they become a nuisance. So those are the things I can think of offhand that could potentially be your issues: your dampening off, your root rot, your fungus gnats. So you don't want to use too much of this. You kind of want to balance between the two of these. You can use them together. I'll talk a little bit about that, but just be careful really with the vermiculite and the perlite, but really with the vermiculite, because I hate to see people kill plants, and you don't mean to. You want the best. It just ends up happening sometimes. So for the perlite, there are certain vegetables and herbs that typically do pretty well with perlite. And that's going to be your plants that hate to have what we call wet feet, or that constant moisture all the time. That's going to be things like your tomatoes and your peppers and your eggplants, and in your herbs, you've got like your rosemary, you've got thyme, you've got oregano and lavender. And if you're a person that likes cactuses or succulents, those are also ones that perlite's going to do really well with them. On the flip side, your vermiculite are the ones that like that moisture, especially when it's constant. So that's going to be a lot of your brassicas. It's going to be your lettuce, your spinach, your leafy greens. It's going to be seedlings. It's going to be, let's see what else. Transplants is another. And in moderation, even your root crops. So your carrots, your radishes, things like that. They don't like wet feet, but they like even moisture. So if you have a good balance of this, those root crops are going to really soar and do really well. So if you're dealing with soil that is too wet, You're going to add your perlite. If it's drying out really fast, that's where you're going to add your vermiculite. If you want a good balance, you can add both of them. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing both perlite and vermiculite. A lot of people do it. It's just making sure that your plants have the air that they need, that they have a little bit of moisture. If you're unsure based on whatever plants or vegetables you are planning to grow, I would encourage you just to ask an experienced gardener or farmer. You know, there's so many great people, especially in a lot of the groups that are willing to help anybody who's trying to grow their own food. Like I love just helping people, just answering questions. I kind of go down a rabbit hole almost daily with helping people with some of the issues that they're having, especially right now. A lot of the zones are actually growing lots of seedlings. And so some of them are already dealing with legginess and things like dampening off, and they don't know what it is. And they're wondering, can my plant be saved? And for some situations it can, and some it can't. So feel free to ask questions when you have questions. We're all here to help. Some of, everybody's learning. I learn new things every day, and I like to share the things that I know, especially the tried things that I know, the things that I've really had a lot of experience with. So that's it for today. Hope you learned a little something, and I'll be doing more videos. I have several that have gone really long, so I'm having to I'm not the greatest at doing video or editing. And so I'm getting some of those, kind of figuring out how to edit them down, and you'll see some snippets of them, and then the full videos will be on YouTube. So again, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching.